What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Yanks to the Cop. For those of you waiting in the chat, so sorry to keep you guys waiting. We had some technical difficulties on our end, but as always, welcome back. I am joined by the wonderful and lovely Sophie. Sophie, how are we doing today?
I'm good, thanks, honey.
It's Friday. It's Friday. The weekend is here, so we are stoked. But we have a jam-packed show today. We are joined by two special guests. We have Gags from the Anfield Index. Gags, how are we doing today?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Very well. Thanks for joining us. And
problem.
Tad from the EPL Index. Tad, how are we doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I'm sharing the enthusiasm for the weekend as well, so really happy to be here.
I'm working tomorrow, so I'm not.
I'm sorry to rub it in, Gags.
Get the violin out. I'll get the violin out. It's all right.
Where's the world's smallest violin?
It is.
It's gotta be somewhere around there. But
we
have a jam.
It's old, but hey, what can you do? We'll get it back next year.
Yeah. But we have a jam-packed show today, guys. Today's show is going to be surrounding some player ratings. So from this past season, a lot of different emotions with different players in the squad. It was a tough season, a lot of ups and downs, and a lot of finger pointing from a lot of our supporters. So I'm curious to see where we go with this one. But if you guys haven't already, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. You know that we appreciate it. It's Friday. You know that we deserve it. So we really, really appreciate you guys. Let's start with just the scoring system we're going to go with today. Obviously, we're going to go through pretty much most of our players in the squad, a rating system of 1 to 9. 1 equals a woeful season. 9 is the star player, and 5 is average at best season. So let's start with the goalkeepers, guys. I mean, let's start with Alisson. I feel like he had a tough beginning of the season. He had some injuries, but the way he ended it was just phenomenal. Gags, let's start with you. What are you going to give Alisson for his season rating? And what were just some general thoughts for his performance throughout the year?
Alisson's going to get an 8 from me because he went through absolute hell this season. And to end it like that, it shows just the strength of the man. I think he was finding it tough, but I think the whole squad found it tough towards the start of the season. He got injured, like you said. It's a bit of a slippery start for us, but you can see the value that he brings. He cost us a couple of goals, I think, towards that horrible period in January, February. But who didn't cost us goals in that time? And for how he saved our season towards the end, not only with the goal, but with how he was saving big chances. It was unbelievable. There was a when we were doing all the analytics pods on AI Pro, there was a time where he literally saved like 7 big chances in a row from the opposition. Yeah. And that's just the difference between getting those 8 wins out of 10 and, dropping points like we were in January to March. So for me, he gets an 8. People might disagree with that, but I think he's one of the reasons why we got Champions League and made the season a success. And people will hate me for saying that it was a success, but I think you're a bit deluded if you don't think so in the end after everything that this squad went through for the first part of the season. Absolutely horrendous situations coming up. So for me, it's an 8 for him.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think when we started the season, obviously we had high expectations after winning the title, but then with the amount of injuries that we had, it slowly spiraled out of control. But Tad, what are your thoughts on Alisson overall? What would you give him, and just some general thoughts from you?
Yeah, it will be interesting to see if this trend continues, but I'm going to be slightly harsher than Gags here. I'm going to drop him 1. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. I do think that obviously you can kind of bookend his season. Beginning of the season and end of the season were really good for me. But obviously in the middle of the season, and there was a lot going on behind the scenes off the pitch as well. So you can kind of give it a grading on a curve. But he certainly wasn't at the higher levels of what we know Alisson can reach.
But it was understandable. Why though?
Yes, exactly.
That's why I didn't dock the point.
I still did dock it in the sense of acknowledging that he wasn't at that level, but it's not anything bad. It's not anything disparaging towards him. I think he can reach higher levels, but giving a 7 out of 10 within the context of knowing that he had a lot going off the pitch as well, I think it's still okay. Obviously, end of the season form was just sensational, and I think our season as a team kind of rode with Alisson in terms of, if you look at our form throughout the season, when Alisson played well, the team played well. So maybe it kind of gives a hint to what I was thinking about the overall score for the team as a whole. I know we're going to get to Klopp later on. That will be an interesting one. But yeah, for me, it's a 7 out of 10. Obviously, taking into account the stuff that happened off the pitch, you cannot quantify what impact that had on him. But hoping that he's found some sort of peace and he's able to go home and be with his family over this period, this off season now.
Well said. Yeah.
So, what do you think?
I'm going to go with Gags, and I put an 8 for Alisson as well. Was it the Alisson that we've known? No. Was it his most stellar performances throughout the season? Absolutely not. But was he there in the vital moments? Like, as Gag said, he made 7 big chances. Those last few games, he came right back out and showed us exactly what he's made of. And he is the reason we got top 4. If it wasn't for that last minute header, we wouldn't have got it. And he had a very understandable reason why he wasn't in the best mind frame. His dad dying under the circumstances that he did would be difficult for anybody anyway. But I think everything's kind of been covered as to why we should or shouldn't give Alisson a certain rate. So I'm not going to just rehash the same thing. But I definitely agree. Alisson got an 8 for definitely. Even in his poor moments, he was better than most. So for me, he was an 8.
Yeah, I'm gonna be very diplomatic here. I'm gonna give a 7.5. I thought he was.
Wait, you didn't say halves are allowed.
Oh, yeah, I've got halves.
I'm the host. I can do whatever I want.
Tell you what. Those splinters are going to hurt, bud. Those splinters are going to hurt.
Well, I'm going 7.5. I think that I agree with Tad. I think we kind of rode. I think Liverpool overall rode the highs and lows along with Alisson. I think he ended the season phenomenally, and that header alone got us into Champions League. I don't care what anybody else says. I mean, that header was absolutely phenomenal. Our Champions League hopes were pretty much drowned out at that point, and he stuck it in the back of the net like any striker, or like some of the best strikers in the world would. I guess I'm curious what happens, what Brazil does this summer. I mean, do they start Ederson, who had a phenomenal season, or do they start Alisson? I don't know if
he's the number one.
Alisson to lose his spot.
He's the number one. That's full stop. I mean, that actual moment you talked about is the moment of the season as well. Did you see the way they celebrated it? I mean, we'll never. I said at the time as well. I said we'll never forget that moment in Liverpool fans' history. We'll never ever forget that moment. And it's just like it's the shittest season we could remember. We came third. It's the shittest season we'll remember. But that moment we'll never ever forget. And that's it. That's
we came third again is just it's still unbelievable to think about. I still can't believe it.
Yeah.
But let's get to the chat real quick. Everybody's saying hello. Alan, thanks for joining us again. Tad, how you doing? Hope you have a great weekend. Stephen Somerville, thanks for joining us as always. Mark saying that he agrees an 8 for Alisson. So he agrees with Sophie and Gags with VVD and Gomez, Matip all out, a new center back partnership in front of him, off the pitch issues, COVID. Yeah, I mean, those are a lot of great reasons. He overcame a lot of adversity for sure. And, I know the team stuck with him throughout most of that. So it was great to see him overcome that, and hopefully he can get back to his best next season from what we saw towards the end of this season. But let's get to we're going to stick to the starting lineup to start. Let's get to Trent Alexander-Arnold. He was another one of those guys who had a rough beginning of the season, but I think one of the big reasons why we made Champions League as well in those last 10 games. But Gags, what do you think? What are you going to give him?
Wow, I'm going first every time.
I can switch it up if you want.
You can next time. I'll go now. I'll do it. I think I'm gonna go 7. I think Trent did suffer in the season and really picked it up after he got ignored by Gareth Southgate. I think that really lit a fire up under his ass, to wake up. But I think there's loads of reasons. I think there was COVID, there was injuries. We overplayed the shit out of him as well at times, so it was understandable. But like you said, I think still he was again one of the reasons why at the end of the season the team really picked up. That triumvirate at the end with Mo, him, and Thiago playing together down that right was fucking beautiful to watch, and I can't wait to see more of that next season. So in the end, I'll give him a +7. But Jesus, if he didn't, it would have been like a 5, because he was suffering a lot. But he's one of my favorite players. I love him, and it's such a shame he's missed the Euros for him.
Yeah.
But I just think he's going to absolutely nail it next season because he's got something to prove. And when someone's got, and I think he's one of those kids that when they got something to prove, they're just going to absolutely smash the league next year. So I think it'll be good for us.
Got a new girlfriend as well, from what I've seen. All the tabloids.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Don't understand the hate he's getting for having a girlfriend. Like, she's fit.
Who's the
Like,
girlfriend? Is it someone popular?
No, just a normal, just an ordinary girl. Like, no one knows. Like,
that's fine. What's wrong with that?
She's just a normal girl, and he's been seen out shopping with her, and then he's been seen sat with his arms around her and that. And there are people like proper slating her, going, she's bare not, and blah blah blah. It's like, hang on a minute, let's see you pull someone like that. Shut the fuck up.
Mate, I swear to God, this world is.
You will pull a girl in a club with a £10 Primark dress on. Shut up.
This world is fucked up if we are judging players because of who they're going out with. I mean, humanity's fucked, man.
Hold on.
Do you guys think that plays,
take, Sophie?
do you guys think that social side plays into it as well? Because if you're looking at it from this perspective, he's a 22-year-old kid that's playing for his dream club, and he's in a pandemic. He can't go out. He can't go see his mates because they're in a bubble, very close-knit bubble within the team. Yeah. I think those factors also play a fact. He's just gotten COVID. Obviously had the injury as well. I think it was a hamstring injury in preseason as well that he got.
Oh, yeah.
Some of these off the field stuff, I think, impact players a lot more. And playing for your home club, I would think not having fans is probably a bigger impact for you. He looks like a player that lives and breathes, the fans being in Anfield and cheering his name.
Yeah.
I think the whole team is. The manager loses a step without the fans. I think the whole thing that this team, especially from Jurgen, is based on passion and the energy, and and it comes from the fans as well. So even if it's away fans, they just need that reaction, that noise. I think they base on it. The whole team, the ethos is based on it. So we struggled. You're right, Ted. I totally agree. And he's going to be one of the players that will struggle with that.
Yeah.
It's literally that walking meme, isn't it, from years ago, where those lads with the banner football without fans is nothing. Like,
yep.
Literally, it is, regardless. But
So Tad and Sophie, what did you give Trent?
7.5 for Trent for me.
In keeping with the tradition that I've carried on, I'm going one below Gag, so I've gone with a 6.
Always one.
And I'm hoping Trent sees this because I've fortunately or unfortunately, due to work, I've gotten a lot more into American sports, and they play a lot into the chip on the shoulder and the athletes having some sort of reason why they're trying to go after it next season or the next game or anything. I was selfishly hoping as a Liverpool fan, Trent didn't make the England team. So that, could you imagine Trent on a revenge tour next season?
Like Michael Jordan. No, Michael Jordan.
Exactly.
I took that personally.
You guys think, I'm not worthy to be in the England squad. Okay, I'll show you guys. I was really rooting for that kind of Trent. So yeah, hopefully Trent sees this, and I'm giving you a 6. I think you were average. Are you really that good? Are you really, that good at crossing and doing cross-field balls? I don't know. I'm skeptical, Trent. Prove me wrong.
I think we saw a lot of that revenge tour, or at least part of that revenge tour towards the end of the season. Once Southgate came out with that squad. I think, and it was literally right after that we went on that 10-game run. So I hope you're right. I hope it just continues. It just continues into next season, and we see an even better
assist against Arsenal as well. Just his emotion,
sensational.
Yeah, he just wears his heart in his sleeve, and I'm just looking forward to next season because I think Tad's spot on. I think he still has a point to prove, and he wants to get back to winning ways, especially in front of the fans. So let's get on to the center back partnership. There was a lot of them this season, but I want to stick to what we ended the season with. So let's go with Nat Phillips first. Sophie, let's start with you. What did you think of Nat this year? Clearly, when he, at the start of the season, we thought he was going to be shipped off somewhere. I think maybe somewhere in the Bundesliga or maybe in the Championship, just somewhere other than Liverpool. Ended up sticking around and having a hell of a season.
Yeah, love Nat Phillips. Absolutely adore him. We had James Pearce on the other night, and it was about how Nat Phillips is most likely going to be staying with Liverpool. It'll depend up until pre-season whether they decide to loan him out or whether he stays with us, etc. And I'm just crossing my fingers and crossing everything that he stays. I gave Phillips an 8.5 for this season. And the reason I gave him an 8.5, I know it's like just 0.5 under like a perfect season. But for me, if you're comparing him to other defenders like Virgil, then no, he's not a 9. But if you take it in the context of the season, the context of the fact that he was playing in first lineup for Liverpool, which he's never played before, and he was ready to be shipped off somewhere. He was playing alongside, Reece Williams, who's a child. He was playing alongside Kabak, who'd never played in this league before. And he was, from Schalke, who've been relegated. He had a lot to deal with, and he stepped up a lot of the times. And he was so solid defensively in the air. He read the game. Yeah. He was very calm. And I felt comfortable having Nat Phillips in the back line. When I saw his name on the team sheet, I kind of went, oh, thank God for that. And when he was out that game towards the end of the season, my heart started panicking. And I was like, oh, my God, no. So I think if you're comparing him to other defenders like Virgil and Gomez and stuff like that, then no, he wouldn't be that high. But in the context of what he did in that situation, in that team, in that part of the season, then yeah, I think he had a brilliant season. And I don't care if people disagree with me or not, because I'm keeping him as an 8.5.
Yeah, I'm giving him an 8. I agree with everything that Sophie said. I think when you look at, if you're looking at it from like a player comparison point of view, like if you're comparing him and Virgil or him and Ruben Diaz, then yeah, he's still going to underperform. But he vastly exceeded expectations this year, and we saw that especially in that last 10-game run. I mean, he was just absolutely immense back there. He was holding down the defensive line. He was winning every head ball in the air. It was amazing to see. And, he's working with a very inexperienced Reece Williams, who is coming from, I think, the 4th division of England, somewhere around there. So there was just a lot of inexperience back there, and he took it on the chin. He took it on the chin, and he led that defensive line, which is pretty impressive to say when you have the likes of Andy Robertson, Allison, and Trent alongside you. So I think I'm giving him an 8. I thought he was absolutely fantastic this year. But Tad, what are you going to give him?
I'm very conflicted with Nat Phillips because, I mean, even if you look at the ratings that I have given him throughout the season, they're not the greatest. But in terms of, I suppose that's the beauty of looking game by game and then looking at, overall picture after a season. I'm going to give him the highest rating that we've got so far. I'm going to give him a 9, purely because he absolutely outperformed what any of us expected. This is a guy that wasn't even meant to be at Liverpool this season, a guy that we were meant to be shipping off to the Championship. And even Championship teams were looking at us like, we're not sure. Can you give, can we take him on loan with an option to buy? And we wanted to just sell him outright. And he comes into a team that is defending champions. He's been playing in Bundesliga too. He has no right to be in this team, if I'm being honest. And you know what? We made top 4. You cannot argue with that. He is part of that. Now, having said that, I still want him to be sold because I don't think that he's good enough to be in a team that's challenging for a title, whether or not he's the 5th, 4th, 5th, 4th, 3rd, second choice defender or anything like that. All due respect to him, I don't think his value will ever be higher than it is now. And we saw what happened with Origi last time out when we could have sold him, held on to him a little bit, and then his value is now plummeted. I think this is the time to sell him. But for this season, I would happily thank him for what he did this season, wish him well wherever he goes. And then also just to say as well, the fact that he's like, we know he's not the best in terms of retaining possession, or, you know, when he has the ball, when he does head it away, he gets to a lot of balls, but he's not necessarily heading it to any of our players. He's just heading it away. But every single time he made a mistake in games, it didn't bother him. We've seen Lovren in our team. We've seen Lovren make one mistake, and that carries for like 3 or 4 games. Nat Phillips would make a mistake, he would pick himself up, and he'll try again. That's all I can ask from a player, is just try your best. So yeah, I'm going 9.
See,
go ahead, Gag.
So his distribution was worse than Lovren's. That was 1 point. Okay, for Phillips, and that's saying something. Literally, man was wearing Iron Man boots the whole season. Every ball out was going out into the fucking stands. But the point is, I can't argue with anything that you guys have said. For effort, it's 100%, absolutely 100% effort from Nat Phillips. For me, it's a 7.5, I'd say, because whilst we made it to the top 4, this is, I mean, the amount of big chances we conceded this season and throughout that last 10 game spell. If it wasn't for Alisson, literally, we wouldn't be in top 4, because the defense was horrific. Still conceding chance after chance after big chance. That West Brom game, I don't know if you remember it, but we conceded so many chances, and it was one of them. We saw him out of position every time, getting attracted to the ball. You know, there were so many mistakes that we are overlooking because the results were good. Now, if VVD or Gomez makes those mistakes, they're getting absolutely hammered. They were getting hammered at the start of the season for those. All of them were, but because this is the shiny new, you know, whatever. I think, like I said, have to thank Phillips for everything that he's done. He's been absolutely fantastic, but there was loads of mistakes. There was still loads of mistakes. So for me, 7.5 for the season. For you know, if you go and have a look at the analysis of every game we did, the last 10 games we were still conceding a hell of a lot of chances. So yeah. You know, it wasn't like it was perfect, you know. So you can't say that it was brilliant when there's still those things that are going wrong every single game. How can you? So from our point of view, but still, like I said, because his effort is undoubtable, you know, that it was just fucking fantastic effort. He was playing out of his skin for who he is and what his talent level is. So a 7.5. Let's be kind. 7.5 in that.
That's what I think it is for me. You know, that's what Sophie and I were, I think, we're getting at, was that it's all about perspective, at least with Nat Phillips. You know, if you're going to compare him to Virgil or Gomez or Matip for that matter, he's going to be lacking in quality for sure. He doesn't have that talent. He doesn't have that pace. But man, he put his life on the line every single time. I mean, how many games was it when he had a massive bandage going around his head because he knocked heads with somebody? And yeah, he's not as good as Virgil. So every time he heads the ball, it's not going to go to our players. It'll probably go to an opposition player or outside the stadium, very likely. But I'm just so impressed by his mentality. You know, we had 25 plus center back partnerships. He's thrown in there after being told that he's probably not going to be a Liverpool player anymore. He's going to be moved on, and he comes into the side and is a big part of us making the top 3. So I'm proud of him. I'm curious what you guys think before we move on. Would you sell Nat Phillips right now, or would you hold on to him and keep him in mind?
It's all about value. It's all about value at the end of the day. If he brings value, as in, you know, we get big money for him, then this is probably the highest you're going to get for someone like that. We already failed, like Tad said, with Origi. But I think the homegrown quota is going to be in a lot of the English players' favour this summer, because we don't have that many in the squad. So I think a lot of them will end up being saved this year. So the likes of the Oxes and Nat will end up staying because it's hard to replace them. It's hard to get English players in. It's basically the the inflation on their price if you buy them from other teams is unbelievable. For the quality that you get, it's not worth it. Right. So I think it's better to keep English players at the moment where we are with how much we've got to spend, and we don't spend much money anyway. So I think it's a bit of a mistake if we do start trying to replace them. But I mean, we've just had a transfer committee podcast where there's still quite really good cheap options out there for some English players in lower league clubs, but it all depends on what Liverpool do. We're not a team, we're not a club that goes and buys 6-7 players a summer.
No.
So how much of an upheaval are we going to do? Does it make sense to sell another defender when you've got 3 defenders that are still injured? I just don't know. I just don't know where the risk is with that. You went in last season without defenders, and now we're talking about selling them. I think we shouldn't sell a defender just yet, and that's the thing. I don't think we should be selling.
Completely agree with Gags. I just wouldn't sell him regardless. I understand where we're coming from in terms of, like he's at his highest value and cash in while you can. We've seen it with Origi, we've seen it with Naby Keita. We're never going to recoup that money. Blah 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 blah. Don't give a shit. The fact is, we went into this season thinking that Virgil was untouchable. That if Gomez got injured, we still had Matip, and it's okay that we lost Lovren. We didn't need to replace him because we thought we had a solid backline that was always going to be fine because Virgil never got injured. And then, lo and behold, October comes round, 6 weeks into the season, and Virgil gets his knee crunched. Then we go, okay, we've got Matip and we've got Gomez, and then Gomez gets injured, and then Matip gets injured, and then Fabinho gets injured, and then before you know it, January comes round and we're scraping the bottom of the barrel in the transfer market on the last day. For me, I'm sat here going, hang on a minute, okay, yes, now we've got Virgil coming back, and we've got Gomez coming back, and we've got Matip coming back. But Matip is made of glass as much as I love him, and when he's fit, he's brilliant, but when he's not fit, he's out for a long time. Yes, we've just signed Canate, okay, so we've got 4 centre-backs. But let's say, for example, Gomez gets a season injury like he seems to get every year. Virgil stays fine, but then you've got Gomez who gets injured, and then you've got just Virgil and Canate. You've got no backup. So if either of them get anything remotely to them, we're back to putting Fabinho in centre-back.
No, can't do that.
We're not keeping Kabak. We're selling. We're getting rid of Kabak. So for me, it makes perfect sense to just keep hold of Nat Phillips again this season. And even if it means, for example, the Midtjylland game in the Champions League was a dead rubber game. Play him in those types of games. Play him in the FA Cup. Play him in those, the League Cup games. Give him some time there to keep his price up. And use him when we need to. And if at the end of the season comes or January comes round and we want to offload him, then offload him then. But for me, right now, he shouldn't be going anywhere. We should not be looking to sell centre-backs knowing what's just happened to us this season.
Tad, let's go to you just to end the chat about Nat Phillips. And then I want to hear your opinion about Reece Williams as well. So let's do the 1-2 punch here.
Cool. For me with Nat Phillips, I think they should set a price that they're willing to sell him at. Maybe not actively go look to sell him, but say if we get an offer of, example, 10 million, he's going to go. Because you're not going to get that money again later on. And we know that Liverpool, and it's not a popular thing to say, but we are a club that sells and then uses that money and reinvests it in the squad. And we use a lot of that to pay installments to then go and fill up our squad, as we were saying. Yeah. And a lot of our players, we're struggling to sell them. So if there are players that are fringe players that we can get money for, we've got to pull the trigger on them. We've seen last season, the reason why we ended up not bringing in the extra centre back, which should have been Kabak, back in the summer last year. But the reason we ended up not bringing in another centre back was because we weren't able to sell some of our fringe players. So if there is a fee that they set and they're able to get that from someone, I think we have to sell him. And as I said, I wish him well. I hope he has a good career, but just I'm sorry, I have to look at it from a business perspective and say he's got to go. Speaking, and then we can move on to Reece Williams. And this is another player that wasn't expecting probably to be involved anywhere near the first team of Liverpool, not especially in the business end of the season, trying to get us into Champions League once again. And I thought he did well. Obviously, there are a lot of things that he can work on, and he's still very, very young. And it's a massive jump from where he was playing last season. So
Yes.
I can just imagine the adjustment there. For him, I'm going to go with the 7. Maybe not quite the cult hero that Nat Phillips became. Maybe if he had gotten a few more headbands, he could have joined Nat Phillips in that cult hero status. But yeah, I thought he did admirable when he was called upon, and maybe could have been relied on a little bit earlier to avoid Fabinho ever going back into centre back.
Yeah, I Reece Williams, I think, is a tough one. But before we go to that, I agree. I think that Nat Phillips is in a similar position to like a Divock Origi if it was a few years ago. Like he had a great season with Liverpool. Divock Origi had a great season with Liverpool when we won the Champions League. We should have sold Divock Origi then when we probably could have gotten 25, 30 million for him back then. And now we're probably going to sell him if he leaves. I don't even know for how much. But yeah, to Reece or to Nat Phillips, maybe we should just capitalize on that. Maybe we could sell him for 10, 15 million. Wash our hands with it. Thank you so much for your service and move on. We still have Davies, who hopefully will be sticking around. Who knows what'll happen to him? But I also heard that Reece Williams might be loaned out. So if that's the case, then I think they kind of have to keep Nat. But I think Gags made a very good point in the home quota that you need to have some English players in the squad. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. Overall, for Reece, though, I'm going to give him a 6. I thought that he was slightly above average. I thought that I think he needs experience. I really do. And he definitely got that this year, but I think he needs experience at a lower level because a lot of times he was out of position. He doesn't have any pace. So positioning is just going to be massive for him moving forward. And a lot of the times he seemed to be slightly out of position. So I think that he does have some quality in the air. He's decent with his feet, but his pace really hurts him. So if he can bulk up a little bit, put on a little bit more muscle, I know he's still young. He has a lot of time, but I don't think it'll be in the Premier League for a little while. So I would loan him out and see what he can do after that. But Gags, what do you think about Reece Williams?
I agree. I think, again, too many mistakes. Can't fault effort because, look, he's not the level that he should be playing at this. He's very young. He's not played football at this level ever before. Like Nat, actually, neither of them have ever played. That was their first Premier League game, so you got to cut them some slack. But he's a level below Nat, so you can't give him anywhere near a 7 or a 7.5. So it's 6.5 for me as well. 6.5. Let's be a bit kinder to Reece for me as well. Again, just can't fault the effort. Helped us get there. Like I said, very thankful for all the effort, but when you judge it on a quality basis and how he played, too many mistakes. So yeah, 6.5 for me.
So
6. For all the reasons.
I was kinder than so for once.
No, I'll be quick. I like Reece Williams. I think he's stepped up for how young he is, but I've seen overturned turtles get off the back quicker than he's turned around.
Yeah.
He's so slow. And I've no doubt that throughout his career development, he'll pick up the tools in his toolkit that he's good at, that make him a good defender, and he'll amplify them and, he'll compensate with them for his lack of pace, etc. It'll be more of a sit back and read the game type defender, which is fine. But he cost us a lot. He was spun constantly, and I just think he was out of his league, really, 100%, but he had no choice, did he? But no, I can't give him more than a 6. I can't. I can't do it.
Yeah, so we have 6, 6.5, and I think it's
that's fair enough.
Bad, right?
Yeah.
But
Tad was supposed to go lower than me every single one, but he's been like higher.
The 2 centre backs, I went higher than you, and I'm still quibbing about the fact that you gave Nat Phillips 7.5 when I gave a 9. We had a whole 1 point difference thing going. I thought we had an understanding, Gags, and you blew that out the water.
It was a nice range.
We've known each other for years, Tad, but sorry, can't agree with you.
I don't know what's going on here.
No confirming. It's got to be your own ideas. You can't be
exactly.
Well, Tad, let's start with you with the next one. Andy Robertson to round off the defense. What did you overall think of Andy Robertson this season?
I gave him a 7. And I think it could have been higher if he was managed better. And this is probably going to go into my rating for Klopp later on. I think he flogged Robertson this season way too much. You signed a left back in the summer, in the last year's window in Tsimikas. Whether or not he's good enough, if he's not good enough, then surely you have to look at the transfer committee, which obviously Klopp is a part of, and say, okay, hold your hand up, we got it wrong. Or, play him in games where he's not necessarily the focal point. I think there were games that he could have afforded Robertson some rest. And the fact that, Robertson's going to be playing every single minute for Scotland. So you have to take that into account. So, it's a 7 for him, but it's more to do with Klopp's management for him. I think anytime he was on the pitch, he always gave 100%. He was always willing to bomb forward. He chased back in defense. It was interesting as well when we did have the centre-back pairing of Nat Phillips +1, whether it was Kabak or Reece Williams. It looked like Robertson had gotten instructions to kind of sit behind them and kind of cheat the offside line a bit, because he would drop deep to try because he knew they didn't have the pace. So if you watch back a few of those games, he kind of was trying to already run back to cover for their lack of pace. And a few times he ended up playing a player onside. I think the Rashford goal was one of them, for example, where the line was there, even though Nat Phillips, ran into midfield, but there was a centre-back line there. But Robertson was knowing, okay, I have to cover there. So tactically, he had to, implement that into his game as well. And then, bless his heart, him in the other team's box when it comes to shooting and stuff, it's not pretty. But it's a 7 for him. If he's got an issue with that, he can blame Klopp.
Yeah, I was surprised at his lack of quality in the beginning of the year too. I think he suffered from similar issues as Trent did. I know he didn't have the injuries or COVID, but just he started off the season really slow for me. His
I thought he started it well. And then went off a cliff.
Yeah, I think when Virgil went off, and the lack of quality from Mane this year, I think hurt Robertson a lot. But his final ball, I just don't think was anywhere near what it was in the past 2 seasons. I hope he works on that a lot. I think he ended the season pretty well. I'm going to give him a 6.5. I don't think he quite reaches the 7 for me. He did play every game, and he did put in a full shift every single match. But for me, it wasn't the Robbo that we knew on many occasions. But I think going back to Gags' comment from the beginning of the show, I think he's one of those players that just thrives off of the crowd. And once the crowd came back, that last game, I thought he had a great game. So hopefully next season we can, with the crowd back in the Anfield and the opposition stands, we'll see a better Robertson. But Gags, what do you think about Robbo?
I think I'm going to have to agree with Tad for once.
Oh no!
I think the 7. I think the 7 is fair. I don't think I'd put him in a 6 for sure. I think the effort just is always off the charts for Robbo. He gives it his all. The quality was definitely lacking though, and like Tad said, I think I can't exactly argue with any of his points. I think it's down to Jurgen playing him way too much this season and just absolutely flogged him and Ginny crazily. And it affected their output in the end. So for me, Robbo though, for all the effort he puts in and leadership he tries to give to the team, I think he still deserves a 7.
So
7.5 for me for Robbo.
7.5.
The reason I've given the 0.5 is for his availability.
Good shout.
On and on and on about how availability is the best ability of a player. Like we've used it with Junior Wijnaldum. He played, was it 49 out of 53 games, something stupid like that. And Robbo played nearly every game. Like I can't actually recall a game that Robbo didn't
play. Yeah.
I actually can't remember the last time he didn't play a game. Like I can remember when he was subbed off, but I can't remember him not starting. And even though he wasn't at his best form, he was always there. And I think he struggled a lot with, because normally he's got Virgil on his side. He struggled with the centre-back partnership. They're constantly changing. He's normally used to having, Gini and Fabinho being able to slot in while he runs up, and they weren't always there. And I think that whole left side this season got completely skewiffed. There's no other way, a better word for it. It got skewiffed. And he struggled, but I do think, again, he didn't let his performance from the last game affect his next game. Like, he just pulled up his sock and went, right, okay, we go again. He just constantly went at it all the time. So for me, 7.5. And that's why.
Solid argument.
Yeah.
Eggs, how you doing on time? I think you said you had 45 minutes to an hour.
It's okay. We can keep going. Yeah.
Why don't we I've just said to Andrew in the chat, why don't we just group all of midfield and just give our ratings for all midfield, and we don't really need to give reasons, just rate them.
Fine.
Just get through it a bit quicker.
Yeah, so let's start with you then.
Midfield, okay, I'm going to go normal ones. Fabinho's a 9. Don't give a rat's arse. He played out of position. He prefers the 6 role. He went into centre-back. We were all happy with him. But anyway, I love Fabinho. So Fabinho was a 9. Gini, I gave an 8.5 too. I'm just trying to read off the phone. Thiago, I gave an 8. Milner, I gave a 6. I'm just trying to think who else have I got on my list. And Hendo, 7.5.
Curtis Jones?
Jones, I gave a 5. Because we didn't really see much of him, but when we did see him, he was all right. So it was like average.
Tab, what do you think?
Yeah, okay, so I'll go in reverse order. For me, Curtis Jones, I gave him a 6 because he did have a spell where he was in the team a lot of the time, and I think more so than he was expected to have been. Obviously, injuries, etc. And also, I thought this season was a tactical season for him. He was being given a lot more instructions than last season. It's almost like they were training him to be, and I don't want to put words in the club's mouth, but be a Gini type replacement, where Gini came to the club as an attacking player. We knew he had goals, from his previous clubs, but he played a more reserved role. I saw a lot of that this season for Curtis Jones, not obviously maybe at the level of Gini, but in the sense of he didn't have that freedom that he had last season when he came into the team. So I think from a development level, I gave him a 6. I thought he handled that pretty decently. Milner, I gave a 5. I think that's also to do with Klopp, because Klopp played him a lot of games where, 2-3 games in a row, and that's just unfair on Milner. I don't think his legs can do, so many games in a row. If you space them out, he's going to do a great job for you. So that's a 5 for him. Hendo, he was injured a lot this season. Maybe not as highlighted as other people when they get injured, but just maybe on that whole availability thing, I gave him a 5. Hopefully he's going to be more available next season. Naby Keita, sorry?
These are really low ratings. I'm just listening to 5.
I know that I didn't think it was that spectacular from, wait for my Naby Keita rating. I gave him a 4.
Oh, I gave him
4.
Yeah. Look,
give him a 3.
The guy, he had the injuries, etc. But even when he was, available, Klopp wasn't playing him. So something's clearly going wrong there. Yeah. But anyway, I thought that was a controversial one, but clearly there are lower ratings for him there. Fabinho, I gave him a 6.5. I don't think it was the greatest season for Fabinho, especially some of the games at centre back. He looked like he was going to have a really good season early on, and then maybe the shift in the whole centre backs, centre midfield deal with the injuries, it had a toll on him. Was Ox a midfielder or a false 9? I don't know what was going there. I'm going to give him a 4 as well. Obviously happy for him to get that goal towards the end of the season, but 4 in terms of being someone that was involved heavily in the team. Thiago is an interesting one because early on it was kind of like a 6, But so maybe I'll end up with a 7 because towards the end of the season, he was phenomenal. I mean, not just on the ball, but off the ball, he was pressing like an absolute machine. And I'll leave the accolades for off the ball stuff to Gags because he knows a lot more about that than I do. But just looking at the guys, just off the ball work was sensational. And then on the ball, we know the quality that he does bring. He's not a typical English midfielder in the terms of, in England, we kind of look at how many goals or how many assists do you get. And that kind of gives you your accolades in England. But he's someone that can dictate the tempo, that can decide when we need to speed things up, when we need to slow things down. And that's important in football as well. So I thought end of the season when him and Fabinho were together, that was really fun to see. I don't know if I missed anyone. Genie, maybe.
Genie.
It's similar to the Robertson thing where Klopp kind of flogged him. So it was a 6 for me.
So yeah, I don't think there are going to be much agreements, but I think Ox and Cato with 5s because they just were non-existent. I went with Hendo and Jones for 6s. Hendo didn't play much. When he did, there wasn't nothing. There wasn't what was there, and Jones, I thought there were some flashes of decent, bits and pieces. He's a young scouser. He's going to be fantastic for Liverpool. Brought a lot of energy, learning on the games. It's a hard, again, like Reece and like Nat. It's going to be hard to learn in this season. It's your first proper season, but again, didn't get many games, so a 6 for him. Ginny 7, same as Robbo, exact. Really, just was affected by being flogged completely. Fab a 7 as well, but I thought Fab was played out of position so long, and he suffered with his injuries because of that as well. That was stop-start, and then even when he got moved into midfield with Thiago, I thought he struggled in some games. He was getting really, bypassed a lot, and he didn't press very much this season. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I collect the pressing stats every single game manually. Take 3-4 hours to collect them, and Fab's numbers were down massively on last season as well. But obviously, he played a lot in central defense. But at the end of the season, when he was in midfield, I think he was given a different role where he had to sit in front of the 2 defenders and really protect them more. So he wasn't pushing out of his position. So I can't wait to see that Fab back when he's able to press and start attacks from that. And I think that's what leads to Thiago's 8, because Thiago played a very consistent season, but people don't see it because he was playing on the left first with Robbo and Mane, who were literally firing blanks. And as soon as Thiago played exactly the same way on the right with 2 players that were amazing and, hitting the target with all their firing, Trent and Mo, absolutely amazing. And it's amazing because people are like, wow, there's some productiveness, but the productiveness would have been there on the other side if the other 2 players were playing at the same level. They just weren't. And I hope next season Mane and Robbo are playing higher and at a better level, because if Thiago's over there, watch them go. They are going to fly. But for me, Thiago as the presser of the season, nearly every game he played, top presser. Like, honestly, efficiency, most presses that led to shots that started counterattacks. Unbelievable output from Thiago that people don't see. But I have to watch this game in slow motion the second time round, and I have to say I'm a massive fan of Thiago. So out of the midfield, especially the last 10 games, phenomenal effort to get us there. One of the stars in the end of that 10, along with Alisson. So I think Thiago gets an 8 for me out of the midfield. Thiago.
That's awesome that you do that, man. I didn't know that you did the pressing stats and all that kind of stuff. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's since 2014.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, Firmino must have great numbers too, I would think, but we'll get to him in a little bit. I'll just run through real quick. Fabinho, I'm going to give him an 8. I thought he was phenomenal this year. He was playing center back for a while with some young guys, a lot of different partnerships, and I thought he exceeded there. And then he went into the midfield, and he was really another one of those catalysts that we were looking at earlier in the show with Trent and Alisson that kind of led us to the top 3. Genie, I'm going to give him Genie's a tough. Genie, I'm going to give a 7.5. I thought Genie had a good season. He was always available. He's a top.
Give him a half for the smile. That's it. It deserves it.
Hey, I'm gonna miss that smile, man. I'm gonna miss that smile.
We all are, man. Legend, absolute legend.
He's definitely a legend, 100%. Anybody who says otherwise I think is incorrect.
The majority of the squad are legends, to be honest. Who's achieved what they've achieved in the last 20 years?
Yeah, and Genie was there in the beginning of Klopp's reign, so I think he's kind of like Adam Lallana. I thought was very similar. He was in the beginning of Klopp's reign and kind of led us towards where we are now. But Thiago 8.5, 9 for me. I thought he was absolutely phenomenal. He is another one who played a lot of different positions. He was playing the 6 for a little while as well, Gags, in the middle part of the season when Fabinho was at center back. It was just he was doing everything. He was wearing a lot of different he's doing a lot of different things. But Milner, 5 for me, average season. Obviously showing his age a little bit. Curtis Jones.
I got Milner. I agree with that. 5. Sorry, I forgot Milner.
Curtis Jones, 6. I thought he was, he had one really good game, and then all the other games, he would have flashes of brilliance, and then he just kind of strode along the rest of the game. Naby Keita, I'm going to give him a 3. I thought he was, I don't know what the deal with him is. I don't know what the hell's going on with him. I don't know why we're still keeping him. I wish we got rid of him, to be honest. He's just, I feel bad for him because I think he's a good guy and everything, but he just doesn't have, I don't think he has what it takes for the Premier League. I
absolutely love Naby Keita, but he just can't stay fit.
The talent's there, but he just can't. I don't think his
body. He's an unbelievable footballer, but he's just not made for a Klopp team, it seems.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Exactly. Ox, I'm giving a 5, and Hendo, I'm going to give a 6. So that kind of rounds up the midfield for me. Let's get to the front 3. I want to start with Sadio Mane. So let's start with you. What do you think of Sadio this year?
Mane, what did I give Mane? I gave Mane a 7. I just don't think, I've said it openly many times, I just don't think Mane was that good this season. He wasn't his normal self. He wasn't linking up with Robbo. His control on the ball was poor. His final touch was poor. His decision making was poor. He got
a 7?
And a 7. But the reason I gave him a 7 is I don't think he had like a 5 worthy. Like when I looked at my other player ratings, there were players who I'm scoring like 5. Like I just think we're like meh. Like if you hadn't been there, you wouldn't have missed them at all. I think if Mane wasn't there at all, I still would have missed them, and that's what I based it off of. Like I still would have missed him. Like he still would have left a hole in the team that couldn't have been filled, type thing. So I probably was a little bit kind, giving him a 7, and I probably could have dropped him to a 6, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. But yeah,
So that's interesting because when people think about Marcus Rashford this past season, I think they're thinking of a guy who had a phenomenal year. He made the England squad, had a great year with Man United, who came in 2nd. Looking at the stats for this year, Marcus Rashford, 37 matches, 11 goals, 9 assists. Sadio Mane, on the other hand, terrible year. Somehow Liverpool made it into the top 3, but he wasn't really one of those catalysts that we were talking about that led us over the line. He struggled all year. He finished with 11 goals, 7 assists. So it's just interesting how the two play out against each other. I think Mane does a lot defensively that goes under the radar as well. But just saying that, I'm gonna agree with Stove. I'm gonna give him a 7. I think
you made me feel like I was being like overly
exactly.
Anyway.
His pressing stats were very low this season. He wasn't putting the amount of effort in as normal. His shooting is in the lowest of all Premier League strikers this season. Well, literally, it went a few up because he scored a couple of goals at the end, but they were in the lowest percentile type thing.
Is there a butt here?
No buts, and it's a 6 from me. There's no buts from me. It's a 6 for Sadio Mane. It's not the level, absolutely nowhere near the level that we expect from him. Had he even if he was half as good as he's shown Liverpool, we would have been in the title challenge, I reckon, because he scores goals. He just scores a bit. How many big chances he missed? I mean, even towards the end of that season, Trent was putting them on a plate for him, and he was putting them wide and open. And there was, from our strikers not hitting the target in that 3 months him and Bobby, it was criminal from both of them. They don't deserve anything more than a 6, in my opinion. And that's for Bobby as well. And they did well towards the end. That got them the point to go to a 6. Otherwise, they were both on 5s for what they have done and what we expect of them. World-class players they should be. They were, nominated for Ballon d'Ors 2 years ago. They were nowhere near that level for us. And they made, and Mo had to carry the whole of that attack on his own. Mo is a 10 this season. Fuck the 9. Mo is a 10 this season. The player of the year for Liverpool Football Club. Without his goals, we are nowhere this season. He scored goals from nothing this season at times. Mo Salah has carried the attack all season. I'm not hearing anything else about it. That is it. It is a 10, and he is the player of the season.
I'm withdrawing my 7 after that from Gags. I'm gonna go with the 6.
Wow, changing your mind.
Yeah, what do you think?
I'll go with the 5 for Mane. Look, I'm being serious. I'm being serious, guys.
He scored a couple of goals in the end that helped us too, man.
You said
the point.
You said he went from a 5 to a 6. He went from a 4 to a 5 for me because
a 4.
Look, fair enough.
And he was pretty bad.
I do
bad,
like
man.
Mane, and he is one of the players that you do root for because he works really hard off the ball usually. But this season, he wasn't even doing that part of the game as well.
No.
Which is the disappointing part. At least if he's got the off-ball stuff as well, you can kind of make up for it. But the finishing was really, really poor from him. There were some chances. If you go back and you look throughout the season, there were chances where you're thinking, mate, what are you thinking? And obviously, I think he had COVID as well, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know how much that affected his season. So obviously you take that grading with a pinch of salt in terms of, relatively speaking, maybe he's not playing, at 100%. And even he did an interview where he was saying he's tried to hire people to figure out, is it nutrition? Is it, training? Or he can't understand what it is that's gone so wrong this season.
That's a worry, right? That's a worry if you don't even know.
If you don't even know, yeah. So even he acknowledged that he was really struggling this season. So I initially didn't think my 4 was, or when he was at a 4 at that stage, like it reflected that, because if he's also dumbfounded by the performances that he's giving. So yeah, he ended up on a 5 for me. He did end the season off well, and it gave him that extra point for me. But yeah, I thought it was a tough season for him. Maybe also off the field stuff in terms of, he's another one. Him and Trent are probably the biggest chip on the shoulder players at Liverpool. Mane played last season, not this season that we just finished, but the season before. He played it like he was basically saying, this should be my team, not Salah's team. That was the perception I got from Mane.
There was a competition, wasn't there? It felt
exactly.
Like a competition.
And then, he doesn't, the pandemic happens, maybe he doesn't get his move or whatever happens from that perspective. But this season, he didn't have that bite in his game. Yeah. He didn't have that ruthlessness of, I'm going to go and score a goal this game because Salah scored 2 the previous one. So that was a worry for me. Yeah, hopefully next season he's better.
Yeah, I'm hoping he takes he has some takeaways after those last 2 games where he scored. I think it was last 2 or maybe the last one where he scored 2 goals, 3 goals. And takes that into the next season, just because the rest of the season was just absolutely horrendous, and it wasn't the Mane that we really know at all for the most part. But let's get to Firmino. What are your thoughts on Firmino, Gags? You kind of
already said I gave him a 6 as well. Again, towards the end of the season, much better, but even worse than Mane in front of goal, pressing down as well.
Statistically, was he worse than Mane?
Yeah, he was until the end of the season. Yeah, he was, and both of them. You don't expect that from them. Like I said, the whole of the attack was dependent on 2 players. Sorry, we forgot Jota, who by the way gets an 8. It was a 9, but then towards the end of the season after his injury, he dropped off a little. So I gave him an 8 instead. But like I said, those two at the start, Jota and Salah were depended on, and then when Jota was out as well, it was all Salah. And so for me, poor Bobby, we love him, but he was poor this season, and a 6 for him as well.
Tad?
Yeah, so he was in tandem with Mane, as Gags obviously gave them both 6s. I gave them both 5s. The interesting thing for me with Bobby is a lot of his shots were closer to goal this season than they have been the previous seasons. And the closer you get to goal, the more defenders you're going to get that are blocking your shots. And a lot of his shots were blocked. So I don't know if it's a tactical thing that he was being asked to play closer to goal, or if it's just something that happened by happenstance, but his finishing was not good. Like, a player like that shouldn't be, taking shots from that close to goal, because he does need the space to be able to get the shots off, because he doesn't necessarily have the finishing technique. I know Gags and I always argue about the technique of our forwards finishing, but for me, not the greatest season, and he's been declining over the years. And when you're now not doing the off-ball side of it, as similar to Mane, then it really becomes quite a glaring thing when you're not scoring goals either.
Stove?
5. Bobby got 5.
Yes, we agree on someone.
Bobby got 5.
Finally. Finally.
Exactly. Like, literally exactly what Tad just said. Like, Bobby just had a very, very piss poor season, didn't he? Like, it was like there was a magnet in the ball that just sent it the opposite direction. No matter what he did, he just fucked everything up.
He fucked everything up.
He literally fucked.
But we all love him, don't we? We love him. We want him to do well, but he just didn't work for him. And he's nothing, like she said. Sophie said nothing worked. Nothing. No back flick.
Except for Spurs games. Spurs games.
Rabona, bicycle flick, scorpion kick. He could have 2-footed Pickford in the face, and he just still got it wrong this season. Like, nothing that kid did was right. And we have seen Bobby decline, and I have said that I think that his time as like a 9 is over for me. I'd like to see him fall into a cam role and sit behind the front line of. But that's me personally. But I think Bobby was a 5.
I think that's a great shout. Bobby did look better in some games where he was deeper, and he was playmaking for the other two. He was much better. Maybe that's a future role for him if we can't sell him.
No, I don't think we'll sell Bobby because he's 29, 30.
Yeah, we're not gonna get much yet.
He'll stay with us now. He'll be done. 2 more years, 2 seasons, and he'll be done. But I do remember that me and Andrew, it was either a watch along we did together or something, and we talked about Bobby and how he was like a brand new sign. And the minute he dropped, I think Jota came on and Bobby dropped back, and it was like a brand new sign because he got to have that, as Tad said, he got that space. He wasn't crushed in with 3 or 4 defenders. And we know Bobby can run through 5 defenders, usually Arsenal. But, he needs that space. He needs that freedom. He likes to keep the ball at his feet. He likes to do his fancy footwork. He likes to trick the player, and he likes to misdirect. He can't do that if he's henpecked into the box. And
he likes players running off him, which Jota and Mo can do, and Mane wasn't doing.
And they've got the speed to do that. Bobby's quick, but he hasn't got the acceleration to do it. He'll eventually get up to speed, but by that point, how many people have ran past him? Whereas if you look at Salah and Mane, and Jota, they are absolutely lightning quick. Like, Salah is just, there's a reason his song says running down the wing. Like, he's a fucking machine. His legs just move. Like, I don't understand it. But I just think
sprint distance is off the charts.
He can do all those flicks and tricks and all those things he wants to do, and the other 3 can bomb it forward and get ahead of the defenders because he'll be able to sit further up the line while all their strikers. But it reduces the offside risk for me as well, because you're not trying to beat them with pace. You've got somebody to hold and play and let them catch up.
Yeah, we've been linked to a player like Rafinha now recently, and if we get someone like that, everybody's saying we're pointing towards a more 4-2-3-1, and then you say, does Bobby come back in behind Mo as a striker, and does that change his role, and does that give him longevity in the squad and in the team? Who knows? But it's a shout, right?
Like,
I have a feeling they've had the discussion with Mo that they had with Cristiano Ronaldo a couple of years back. he can extend his career if he moves inside.
Hmm.
I think that's the conversation they've had, and that's why they want to wing. Like, you can go about it two ways. You can either bring in a number 9 and he replaces Bobby, or you move Mo inside and you bring in a wide player. And I think that's the conversation that they've had with him.
Like, I've said it a lot. I really like Rafinha. I think he's an amazing player and he's really fucking quick. Could you imagine Mane, Rafinha, Salah,
Jota, Bobby, Filippinek. I mean,
basically, if you get a corner against Liverpool, you better score it or you're screwed.
Oh, you're fucked. Because if Rafinha gets that ball, just imagine if Rafinha got that ball at his feet, laid it off to Bobby, and then bolted up, and Salah bolted up, and then you've got Mane bolting up, you've got no chance in fucking hell of catching them three, have you?
He's also gonna bring the flair of a similar type to what Phil had, Coutinho had. That shooting from long range, that precise into the corners. You know, he's very talented.
For 60
the only thing with Rafinha for me,
if we get him, we are seriously gonna. We just did a transfer committee pod on AI Pro, and you know, the some of the discussion points for this player when like the scouting section was there and the data section was there, and they were going through it. They were saying that he did this at Leeds, but he's one of those players that when he's with Klopp, you're talking he's going to go up a level, and if he goes up a level, fucking hell.
Well,
I mean,
just
you don't
to
need
go
a
on,
Sancho.
Just to go on transfer, yeah, you don't need a fucking Sancho, do you? Rafinha's price is ridiculous for Leeds, but I think if we can throw in a Harry Wilson and try and bring the price down a bit, it's more than doable. But I said that I'd like Newhouse, but there's been and there was no, like, we talked to James Pearson, there's absolutely nothing about him whatsoever. And then all of a sudden today, it's like all these journalists are coming out saying that Liverpool are linked with Newhouse, and I'm sat there going, please.
Yeah.
Please.
I think Taddle.
Could you imagine Newhouse in midfield and then?
I think Taddle probably agree
I'd be
with me.
Very happy. I'd be very happy.
Yeah, I think everybody would be happy with quality player signing, but I think Liverpool are throwing a lot of names into with agents and and playing a game here. I think there seems to be like 5 or 6 targets per position at the moment. And what will happen is we will get a very exciting one. I do agree, but it's going to be interesting what we do. It looks like we're definitely after another forward and another midfielder. So it's exciting times. It's. I hope we sign them during the Euros because it'll be really cool. But might just have to wait until after now that we've started. But yeah, I mean, this summer's going to be really exciting. But we should really finish this now, otherwise we're going to be here forever.
Yeah, we'll go on to a transfer topic in a minute.
Let's end with Klopp. How about that?
What about Mo? Did anybody say Mo? Did they all agree with a 10?
Mo.
I agree to 10. I agree to 10.
Yeah, Mo gets a 9. Mo had a great season. Should have won Golden Boot. Wish he won.
Where did the hot take? Where did the hot take flash come? Why did you flash my hot take and not your hot take? Dropping Mo to a 9 from a 10.
No, but 9's the highest.
9 is the scale, man.
9's a scale. I took the piss and went to 10 just to say that I wanted to go over.
No ways, I'm going 10 because look at not just him scoring the goals that he did in a poor Liverpool team, but he scored a lot of goals where it was 0-0 and made it 1-0. A lot of go-ahead goals. Yeah. Not a lot is played, into that in football at the moment, but in terms of it's easy to score when your team is 2-3-0 up.
Yeah,
he was digging us out of a lot of holes this past season. I thought it was a 10th season, relatively speaking, with the side he was playing with this season.
He got voted the Premier League Player of the Year by the fans, but obviously it's because Liverpool fans are the best online polls. But yeah, here you go.
I love that. Yeah, I'm giving Mo a 9, or I'll give him a 10. All right, I'll give him a 10.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sophie, it's a 10. It's a 10.
Yeah, okay, I'll go with a 10.
Yeah, pressure. Yeah, pressure. Yeah, pressure.
She changed one.
She changed one.
All right, let's end with Klopp, the big man. Gags, let's start with you. I want to hear what you have to say about this.
I thought he had a poor season, but the poor season was because he lost someone that was massive to him too. I think you could tell that the squad suffered when he suffered. He's literally the heartbeat man of the club at the moment.
Yeah.
So, you know, when he lost his mom, you could see the life fall out of the team. But notwithstanding, I think he made a lot of blunders with the team in terms of playing Fab out of position for so long. Look at the difference when Fab went into midfield with Thiago. You know, the amount of shit Thiago got, all Fab gone in before, freed Thiago up a bit. None of that bullshit would be going on with ex-players and all this press talking about him and people buying it and totally buying it and not analyzing or just listen, just so much bullshit, right? And then, you know, all of that is on him. Nat played. Nat wasn't even getting played. You know, it was Hendo and Fab. Had he maybe brought Nat in earlier, you know, and played Reece with him, maybe they'd have settled after that first 10 games and maybe got better. Because obviously, if you play 10, 20, 30 games together in a season, you're going to strike some form of partnership. It took us till the end of the season when we were forced to do it, to get it, and to get those midfielders in front of them, to get a run going. Imagine if that run started, you know, 10, 15 games prior. The pressure on Man City cave under pressure. We know that. They cave every time.
Yeah.
So anything could have happened. Anything could have happened. So those mistakes cost you title run-ins and things like that. And you know, at the end of the day, he suffered. So I don't want to be too harsh on him, but I think it has to be like a 6.5 for Klopp, you know. You can't get more than that just because they were he had a rough season, losing the players. How do you manage it? But then he didn't choose to get a centre back at the start of the season, which he should have done, right? He should have pushed for that. No matter what, I don't care. Get me one on loan if I have to. Get me one. Because you can. If you want it, you can get it. Then not playing them in the right position, playing Fab at the back too much, injuring him. Hendo at the back got injured. Imagine if Hendo was available more. You know, our ratings would have been much better for Hendo because he would have made a proper difference in midfield. He can't make a difference from defense. He's fucking shit there. He's just not a defender. He's not. But he can make a difference in midfield because he's the engine. So, you know, all these things play on everyone's. Look at the ratings we've given. They're all pretty much because of where Klopp's played them and what he's done with them. And they've all had lower ratings because of that. So I think I'm probably being kind with the 6.5, but he got us there in the end. So 6.5 for you.
Yeah.
And I love him. And I think he's the best thing about the club.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. People make mistakes. I don't think he's going to make them next season. I think he's going to learn. He's bought Konate. I actually got a feeling with the way Kabak was in a Liverpool shirt on the Liverpool account today that there might be something going on with Kabak. I don't know, but we might get another defender in. So, you know, I don't think they're going to take the risk at the back, right? And I just think there might be another defender as well. So, who knows?
No, I agree. I think that this. I think you hit it the nail on the head there. I think that Klopp learned a lot this season. You know, I think the season before, Pep Guardiola made the same exact mistake. He played a midfielder in defense, and City weren't the same at all. And you saw Klopp make the same exact mistake this season. You know, he playing Fabinho and Henderson and not trusting center backs to play that role, to play their own position. You know, when you bring in a midfielder, yeah, they might be talented. Fabinho has experience back there, but they're always thinking like a midfielder. They don't have the natural instincts. So I think that when we saw Phillips and Reece Williams come in, you saw that those instincts were there. Yeah, they didn't have the talent of a Van Dijk or a Gomez, but they were very effective, and they were ball-winning center backs. So that made a massive impact for me.
Reece's aerial duel win rate was the best in Europe in the end. Can you fucking believe that?
Really? Was it? Wow.
Yeah.
How tall is he? Like 6'4"?
Yeah, he's tall.
6'5".
He's really good in the air, but it's just like Soph said, it just can't. He's not very fast. He can't turn, and you know it fucks you up. So
I think a little more eloquently, I think.
Yeah, he can't. But you know, there were benefits to having him there on corners. We were struggling on corners, things like that. You know, and when teams are trying to play long ball against us, you know, Phillips and Reece did do a job. So
yeah.
but aerially did a job when those teams were struggling. So when we played Fab and Hendo there, we were fucked in the air completely, and people were just overpowering us. So when them two went back there, at least they could do something for us. So yeah I agree with you.
I'm going to give overall, I'm going to give Klopp a 7. Actually, I'm going to go 0.5 higher than Gags, and I actually agree with brethren John here, which is a great name. Hold on, it's lagging on me for some reason. He said, "Do you think that Gags is too strict for giving Klopp a 6.5?" I would give him a 7.5 because no squad would survive the number of injuries we had. Last 10 games, we obtained 26 out of 30 points. I mean, that's phenomenal statistic right there.
It would have been better. It would have been like whatever 42 out of 45 or whatever it is, or the 4 points. It would have been much better had he played 2 defenders earlier, and that's why the half a point or the point is down, because it was too late. You're second. You don't have to listen to this shit from United fans right now. Rio Ferdinand talking all that bullshit online about how they've caught us and all this fucking crap.
Yeah.
We gotta watch that shit for a whole year now. We gotta watch that shit because we made mistakes. Our manager made mistakes. There's no harm in saying that. We still love him. He's still the greatest manager we've had for since Kenny, So it's just what happened. That's all.
And the thing is, both of those things can be right at the same, like 2 things can be correct at the same time. Like Klopp, I think all of us can agree there's no manager in the world we want managing Liverpool other than Jurgen Klopp.
Not. Absolutely.
But he also is human. He also makes mistakes. And there were times in the season, we've mentioned, for example, Robertson being overused this season, and that affects how he plays on the left-hand side. Gini Wijnaldum, the overuse of him, perhaps it's because Klopp knew, well, he's not signing a new contract, so I may as well flog him for, we've got him here, so I may as well use him as much as he's PSG's problem. Do you get what I mean? He's going to be the future manager's problem in terms of injuries and how he recovers going forward. He only has
to play 6 games over there throughout the season. The rest of the time he's
so he probably made a good decision there. But in terms of throughout the season, especially in that patch, I think December to February, where I think we only won like 3 games, there were a lot of mistakes there from Klopp. And obviously, as we said, it's all relative in terms of what was going on from a personal perspective, and then obviously the injuries and all of that happened to the team. But I agree with the 6.5 from Gags. I think Klopp did make mistakes in the season, but that 6.5 is also it's also in respect of the fact that I'm glad that Klopp is a manager that isn't too stubborn to change. How many managers would in world football, I'm looking at, for example, Mourinho, he would have kept Fabinho at centre back and be like, you know what, we're going to figure it out.
Manager now. Imagine,
you know what I mean? So
we would have been like 10th.
As much as we criticize him for making the mistakes, I'm just glad we have a manager that can admit that he was wrong at that point in time and look to correct it. And he did correct it in the end. And hopefully, obviously, he uses that next season. But I do think the fact that there were so many mistakes throughout the season, he can't get higher than a 6.5.
And I still agree with John, who's put the comment in that no other squad would do that, and that's testament to Klopp. But because of those mistakes, it's still a balancing act, He still did great, but then there were some mistakes. He could have been better. So, I still, like I said, I think Klopp's one of the best managers in the world. I think if City had him, they would have won the Champions League. Bitches. But yeah, but I just think I would, like I said, 6.5, but I wouldn't change him for anybody in the world.
Well, I think it's interesting with Klopp too, because like I said, I think he learned a lot, because I think he learned that he has to trust his players. It's when he has that starting lineup out there, he trusts those 11. But if any of them get injured, like we saw with Virgil and Gomez and Matip, once one of them is out, then he really struggles to find the exact correct piece that needs to fit the puzzle. So I think that he learned a lot this year. I think he learned that he needs to trust his players a lot more. But Soph, what do you think about Klopp?
I found this really hard because my heart wants to give him like 1 million because I adore him. But reality-wise, when you take everything into account, like I've said that no other team could be decimated by injuries the way we have been this season and get third place. Like no other team could lose their unbeaten home streak, could lose all of their players for a combined lot of days, 3 times the length of the Premier League in general. Like, no other manager could lose all those things and still have faith and push the boys for third. Like that's very difficult, and I'm proud of him for that, and I adore him for that. But like the lads have said, and yourself, like he flogged his trusted lieutenants. He flogged them over and over and over again this season. Like there was no rotation, and I know we struggled for rotation because we didn't have any players because we were all fucking injured.
I had to do it.
That's my.
You were saying?
That's my fucking button. That's twice I've made a button and twice you fucking robbed it.
Use it against you. Yep.
I'm gonna kick your fucking head in. Just wait. Twat. But yeah, I'm gonna go with a 7 for Klopp this season.
I don't think we can argue. I think it's a personal thing. So that's like I said.
I want to give him more. I really do. I really want to give him more because obviously he lost his mum, and you saw how much he struggled. He couldn't go home. Like, he couldn't go home and bury his mum. Like that's a horrible thing. And I know Alison's as well, but still. And he didn't have the fans there. He didn't have that blanket around him like we always are. And there was a lot of struggles this season, but I just think if we're gonna rate all the other players statistically lower for not being themselves, the same needs to apply for Klopp. As much as we love and as much as I want like a 50-foot statue outside Anfield for him, in diamonds, encrusted, whatever. Yeah, it's got to be a 7.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap, do you guys want to do some quick trivia before we wrap, or do you guys need to get out of here?
I've got some questions if the lads want to stay, but if not, I'm good.
Gags?
We might as well. Come on, she's prepared them, so
I sat here while you were all going on your rant and got these, so shut it up, was it?
All right, so what do we got?
Okay, first one. Would you rather lose the ability to lie, or would you rather believe everything you are told?
I'd rather
believe everything I'm told, because it doesn't. You're still gonna believe it, whereas I need that ability to lie. It's part of my job.
It's a great question. Great question.
I don't want to be a gullible bastard, so yeah, just lose the ability to lie. Just be really blunt with people. You look like a dick. You know, that's fine. That's fine. She's getting on well. She's doing fine in the life. So
you're gonna get punched in the face all the time.
It would just be like Soph. It's fine.
The amount of times I threaten those people that I love with physical violence is quite alarming.
And plus, I had to go.
I'm with Tad. I agree, Tad. I would have to. You know, if I didn't have that ability, I would just tell the truth all the time. It would be terrible.
Oh, mate.
See, I definitely go with losing the ability to lie, because I'll just tell you to your face anyway that you're a dickhead. I don't really care.
She doesn't need to lose it. She's never had it.
But when I saw that question, I instantly thought of, Liar Liar.
Yeah, that's right.
Liar Liar. And he's going, and he's just like, goose. And like, I just saw Liar Liar, and the fact that he's going, the colour of this pen is, and literally, I would so love the ability to lie, like lose the ability to lie, just because then I could be a dickhead to people and be like, oh, sorry, I can't lie. I can get away with it.
So good.
I like that one.
Okay, next one. Would you rather have super speed or super strength?
Super speed for me. 100%.
Yeah.
You just run circles around him. Won't be able to touch you.
Yeah, super speed.
Yeah, but you'll get your one time. So one punch, and with that speed, that's going to hurt. So yeah, I'm going to go super strength. That would be nice.
I'm going to go super speed.
Yeah,
I think that would be pretty cool. being able to just move faster than everyone else.
Yeah, it's the Flash versus the Hulk or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
I'll always go Hulk. I'll always go Marvel over DC at the end of the day. So.
Oh no,
Yeah.
I'd be going for
Oh, no.
Have you seen Loki?
No, I
Yeah,
haven't
it's
watched
so
it
good.
yet. Shut up.
Oh, it's so
So good.
good. It's
I've
so
watched
good.
it.
So it's a belter of a first episode. That
Tom
so,
Hiddleston is amazing. I love that guy.
He is. It's good.
Well, that works really nicely into the last question, actually. I've been watching the Vikings, so I'm a little bit obsessed with like Norse gods at the minute.
Have you
So
seen?
my
Have you seen The Last Kingdom?
No, I haven't watched it.
Watch The Last Kingdom on Netflix because it's just like Vikings, and I actually think it's better. So,
Okay, well, I'm obsessed with Vikings, so I'm a little bit obsessed with like Norse, like pagan mythology and all that at the minute. Like I'm obsessed with. Would you rather be Odin, Thor, or Loki?
oh my god,
I'd want to be Loki. I'd love to just trick people and be manipulative. That's just so fun. It's just so fun. Definitely.
I think you and me are the same, and it's probably why we gave the whole answer we gave for truth versus lying. I think I would be Loki as well.
yeah, because that wouldn't have been
Very
that would have been
Machiavellian aspect of him is. I think it plays into it.
Yeah. Well said.
Go on, Soph. Go on.
I actually went with Thor because as much as I think Loki is fun,
You just like Liam Hemsworth.
No, well, yes, but no.
He is dreamy. You can't deny that.
It's
No,
just,
man, he's amazing.
Thor's
He's
just
absolutely amazing.
badass. Like he has a hammer that no one else can pick up, and he can just smack you with it. And imagine me with a hammer that no one else can touch, with the ability not to lie, just go, "You're a prick," smack.
and an axe as well.
I actually went axe throwing
You're pissing
this
me off.
past
You're
Sunday.
a knobhead. Thunderstorm.
That's it.
You're
That's
pissing
it.
me off. Lightning bolt.
I mean, if you watch Ragnarok, I fell in love with the Thor character even more in Ragnarok, and probably down to the director being so fucking brilliant. But
that movie's phenomenal.
How can you not want to be Thor after that film? I mean, things like that, and that's right out of the comic book. So, yeah, Thor is a fucking legend, man. God, there you go. God of Thunder for me, please. I'm agreeing with Soph.
So I'm going to beat the shit out of him, and you're going to beat the shit out of him.
Absolutely. Oh, that way. Wait, which way? Yeah, that way.
It's a mirror.
It is.
Wait, what were you saying, Soph? All right, guys, let's end the show there.
I don't like it. Why am I there?
You need to watch Loki. It's really good though.
Why am I here? I don't like this side.
I moved it.
I don't like move it back. I don't like it.
But let's end the show there, guys. Thanks so much for joining. If anybody who's still in the chat here, appreciate you guys as always. Great show, Rupert. Really appreciate that. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. But Gags and Tad, thanks so much for joining us, you guys. You guys were absolutely awesome today. Great stats, great analysis, great insight as well. How can people?
You're all right.
How can people find you guys on Twitter or any social media or anything like that?
Go on, Tad.
You can find me at Tad Predicts, as it's
Twitter,
written there on Twitter. And then you can also check out my show, A Tad Predictable. We do EPL score predictions throughout the season. Obviously, it's postseason now, so we're going to have some fun shows coming up. We're going to have one of your guys' very own LFC Wahome. He's going to come onto the show. We're basically going to have State of the Nation addresses for the different teams throughout the postseason. So we're going to have him be the Liverpool representative to come give us some reckless predictions on how he thinks next season's going to go, the transfer window and stuff like that. But yeah.
You are aware that he is the resident negative Nelly.
I know. That's why we're bringing him. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
I love him. I adore him, but he's a negative Nelly.
He's awesome. He's really cool. So yeah, check that out. And obviously, you can check me out on Anfield Index Pro as well. I do weekly rating show there where we rate the players. So you might be surprised with some of my Nat Phillips ratings on that one based on the 9 I gave him for the overall season. But yeah,
he's a regular on he's a staple on Rate Don't Hate. So yeah, get that show as well. Tad, Tad and me, basically, we're on the same team. EPL Index is also one of my brands. So, yeah, make sure you go and check out Tad's predicts on that. Tad Predictable even. There's Two-Footed Podcast on EPL Index as well. That's really good. From my side, it's at Gag Standing, which is just there. I've just changed that literally now. I didn't follow what everybody else was doing until the end. But Gag Standing and at Anfield Index Pro. We have a subscription-based podcast which is doing amazing. Come and check us out. Again, we got the Under Pressure podcast, Two-Footed the AI Scouted podcast. There's absolutely loads of content and talented people over there. And it's just 10 years now we've been going. So
congratulations.
It's been a hell of a ride, and there's a lot more coming this summer. There's some big things happening this summer as well. So yeah, make sure you check it out and make sure you check what we're doing, because we're very niche, but there's some really good stuff there.
If I could just jump in and big up just quickly, that Under Pressure podcast that Gags has mentioned is probably worth the subscription alone for Anfield Index Pro. They've been collecting stats on Liverpool games for, as guys are saying, 10 years now. They break down in terms of statistics of how games are going. You can see now podcasts are starting to do it, and people are starting to incorporate stats and stuff like that. These guys have been doing it for years, and they've got the database. And you know, they're the go-to people, in my opinion, to understand why Liverpool do certain things and to know what to expect from Liverpool from an evolution perspective, and also understanding, okay, a Thiago, he might not be seen in the limelight from the pundits and stuff because he's an easy target, but actually, when it comes to the pressing, the off the ball stuff and stuff like that, so it helps to negate some of the confirmation bias that we do usually get from pundits and commentators. So that one alone for me is a standout.
High praise. I like it a lot. Well, if you guys haven't already, go ahead and check those guys shows out. They're probably phenomenal stuff. I'll be checking it out as well. But Gags and Tad, thanks again so much for joining us, guys. Sophie, as always, a pleasure.
Lovely to meet you both.
Yeah,
you
as well.
Really good fun.
But we'll be back soon, guys. For everybody still in the chat, up the Reds, and have a wonderful weekend, guys. Have a wonderful weekend.